Thank you so much for joining us here today. I want to acknowledge we are gathered today on the traditional territory of the signatories of Treaty 7, and I acknowledge the Métis people who share a deep connection with this land. Today, I'm joined by Alberta NDP leader Rachel Notley and Daniela McGonigal-Videla, a student here in Calgary who is concerned about the lack of housing. Alberta is in a housing crisis, and nowhere is that more apparent than right here in Calgary. Calgary has seen the fastest growing rent increases in the country, hovering around 20% in the last year. This has been driven by demand outstripping housing supply by 2-to-1, according to the Business Council of Alberta. And as a result, we've heard from Albertans who are desperate to find a place to live. They've been forced to compete with hundreds of other applicants. We've seen lines of people down the street just waiting to view a place. We've heard of rent increasing by hundreds of dollars per month. We've even heard media reports of people living in their vehicles because they can't find anywhere to live. The bottom line is we need more housing. And more importantly, we need the UCP provincial government to step up to support Albertans who are struggling to find a place to live. That's why I'm very pleased today to join Daniela and Rachel and the Alberta NDP to come forward with some ideas to help immediately, which we'll hear from Rachel in a moment. But first, I'd really like to hear from Daniela to share her challenges with finding affordable housing here in Calgary.
Thank you, and thank you to Janis, Irwin, and Rachel Notley, and the Alberta NDP for wanting me to talk about my experiences. I am beyond honored, and I know that I am just one of many university students and Albertans who are struggling in the housing crisis in Canada. So my name is Daniela. I'm a student here in Calgary. I lived on my own for 5 years at the University of British Columbia in Kelowna and in the UK, moving back in with my parents during the pandemic. And it's no longer possible for me to be independent now. And it's hard. Even though living with my parents has eased my financial situation, as an adult it has been challenging. You don't have the level of privacy or freedom that you would like. And I'm also trying to save up for graduate school for next year. But it's very hard when I'm labeled as a seasonal worker and you must adjust to everyday life. I am attending the University of Calgary, doing some open studies courses, but I had to dip into my savings in order to afford the extremely high tuition rates for the classes. And I worry that I won't be able to find a place to live in Lethbridge next year if the housing crisis continues. Not being able to see a future where I can afford to live on my own has been extremely hard on my mental health. And a lot of us feel like that fear is not being acknowledged. A lot of people might say that my story doesn't matter, that if we don't rent in this moment, then our crisis is not as dire as other students. But that's not the point, because I, like so many young people here in Alberta, can't see a future where we can live on our own anymore. We work and we try to earn enough money to rent, but our wages won't allow that to happen. So while I don't have the same struggles as so many university students at the moment who are struggling to find housing, it still isn't very easy. If we want young people to stay in Alberta, we need to give them hope for the future. They need to be able to see themselves building a life here. But to do that, we need to address the housing crisis. It's no longer about whether we need housing. This is a human rights issue, and it's costing real lives. There's also the realities that Indigenous and marginalized communities experience in this crisis are much higher, and this needs to be addressed. So we need to look at this in a holistic way, because it's not a black and white issue. It's many issues rolled into one, and we aren't just floundering, we're drowning. Thank you for hearing me.
Well, thank you so much, Daniela, and thank you, Janis, for your comments. You know, we've heard from many Albertans who are struggling to find an affordable place to live. And for those who have one, they're actually worried about whether it will be affordable for much longer. It will truly take all levels of government coming together to address the housing crisis and to support Albertans. So it's disappointing that rather than supporting more affordable housing, the UCP is actually making cuts. They've cut the number of provincially supported affordable homes, and they have cut financial assistance programs that support Albertans. And that's why we've been consulting with Albertans on ways to address this crisis. And we've already released a suite of proposals that can be found on albertasfuture.ca. We know that the housing crisis won't be solved with just one action. It's going to require a number of steps, and it's going to require all orders of government working together. But one of the solutions to addressing this crisis is to build more housing. And that solution is actually right in front of us, or rather, right behind me. According to the latest market report from Commercial Real Estate Services, which was released late last month, over 30% of Calgary's downtown office space continues to sit empty. The highest vacancy rate in the country by a long shot. The city of Calgary now already has a program in place to convert a lot of these spaces into affordable housing. In fact, it's been very successful to date. It's seen a lot of interest from developers who are able to build units quickly, often cutting design and construction timelines in half compared to new purpose-built rental projects. The program has been so successful that it's been oversubscribed and will run out of city funding very soon. That's why the city's asked for other levels of government, including the provincial government, to provide funding to the program. Now, we've been supportive of that call. In the recent election campaign, we promised to match the city's funding for downtown office conversion. These can be done. Some of you have even been to our old caucus office. Well, that building's now actually nearly empty, and so it's now been temporarily closed, and it's now being renovated to become affordable housing. So today, we're simply doing this. We're calling on the UCP to step up and provide urgent funding to support the construction of housing and to address the crisis so many Albertans are experiencing. And let me put it even more bluntly. If Danielle Smith can help pay for a new home for the Flames and their billionaire owner, surely she can build homes for regular Calgarians. We have the space. We have willing partners ready to get to work. We just need a provincial government that is willing to step up for families across this province. So thank you, and we are happy to take any questions you might have.
Okay, we'll start with questions in person, then go to questions on the line.
I guess my first question, it's Adam with Global News. My first question, I guess, what is the call here for the province? As you know, the city is moving forward with some more conversions here in the near future, and have included some money coming up in the budget through the housing strategy for post-secondary downtown conversions for residences for post-secondary students. So what is the call here to the province in regards to converting office space down here?
So there's basically two. First of all, we would like to see the UCP restore the major affordable housing funding commitment overall across the province that we'd had in place back when we were in government. They've cut it essentially by about 2/3. Secondly, within that, we want to see them step up and offer up the matching funds that the city called for about 18 months ago. The city's about to run out of money in this program. It's a successful program. People are looking to take up the ask that the city's put out there. And yet there need to be other partners. And the province just isn't stepping up. So we need a much more aggressive investment in affordable housing across the board. And as part of that, we need to see the government step up and partner with folks in the city of Calgary to make some of those spots happen downtown.
What would you say, because I would imagine if I reach out to the province right now and ask them about downtown funding, they will directly point to the $300 and so million that is coming to downtown for
Sorry, could you maybe just I don't have sound there. I don't know if I can't. Okay, sorry. I'm struggling to hear you. Sorry.
I would imagine that the province will say we are investing in Calgary's downtown through the $300 million that they will be putting into Victoria Park for new infrastructure to make way for private developers to start building in that area. So I'd say, what would you say to that response from the province?
I would say if we can afford $300 million to find a home for the Calgary Flames and their billionaire owner, we can afford the same amount of money to build affordable housing units for tens of thousands of Alberta families who are struggling to find an affordable way to keep a roof over their head.
Okay, we'll go to questions on the line. First question goes to Dean Bennett.
Hello?
Hi, Dean.
Okay, hi. So yeah, two questions. First off, two unrelated questions. Sorry about that. First off, you've got your consultations on CPP next week. We still haven't heard from the government on their consultations. What do you think the delay is? And do you have any concerns about the government consultations, given what you saw in the survey? And just tell me what you're hearing so far on the CPP.
Well, thanks. So listen, Dean, we talked last week about our CPP survey, where we simply asked Albertans, do they or do they not want to stay in CPP and maintain, we just asked the question. We didn't actually do a push poll. We didn't do a bunch of arguments. We just said in or out. We've now heard from over 23,000 Albertans, and the number of people who are saying, let's just stay with CPP has now moved over 90%. So that's what we're hearing from the 23,000 Albertans who've reached out to us on this matter so far. When it comes to the provincial government's consultations, I'm deeply concerned. So far, they have done nothing honest on this issue. They have lied to Albertans about what the cost would be of pulling out of CPP. They've lied to Albertans about how much money Albertans would be entitled to start up our own pension plan. They've lied to Albertans about their plans on this overall. So I am deeply skeptical about what would happen in the consultations that they would move forward. They're clearly trying to manipulate Albertans. They're using taxpayers' dollars to do it, and they are doing it in an incredibly dishonest way.
Is there a follow-up, Dean?
Thanks. And you mentioned twice about the money for the Flames owners through the arena. It gives me a chance to ask you what you think of the finalized deal. And that's another part of my question. Oh, and the Premier would disagree with you. She's saying there's no money going to this arena. It's the surrounding infrastructure.
Well, listen, when it comes to the deal itself, we are unfortunately in a very similar position to where we were when it was first announced a few months ago. We really haven't gotten a whole heck of a lot of more information about the specifics around who's covering what costs in terms of the overruns and the interest and all that kind of stuff. So it continues to be a thing where we need more information. But let me just say this. Overall, it's a question of priorities. If the deal's the right deal, I don't necessarily have a problem with Calgary getting a new arena at a certain point. However, it is a question about priorities. And so $300 million towards that particular outcome, when we've got a hospital in South Edmonton that was committed to voters over 5 years ago where nothing has happened yet. We've got a hospital in Red Deer that was committed to voters over 4 years ago and nothing has started yet. We have a desperate need for high schools all across this province, and instead we're hearing that kids are going to have to start learning online. And we have hundreds of millions of dollars that we need to have invested year in and year out in affordable housing. We have lost about 15,000 affordable housing units since the UCP took power. That is not a record we can be proud of. So for me, if the UCP is going to focus appropriately on the issues that are squarely within their jurisdiction, housing, schools, hospitals, then fine, do what you want with the arena. But don't do this with the arena and then claim poverty on all these other areas where Alberta families are desperately asking for this government to step up and do their job for regular folks.
Anything else, Dean?
No, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, one more pass for question, either on the line or in person. And seeing none, that's all for today.
Thank you all.